Hello there. Welcome into a Monday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on 740 KVOR, Extra Sports 1300, or you're listening on the streaming apps of those two fine radio stations. They are both free to download and both free to use, so might as well get them. And they are sponsored by Diversus Health, Mental Health, and well-being for all. A veritable cornucopia of sports topics await you largely around two sporting events from the weekend that I will get into shortly. Your thoughts always welcome at 719-247-1313. You could call or text into the show. Producer extraordinaire Ray Dominguez standing by, eagerly awaiting your correspondence. In a world where not much lives up to the hype, just saw the Mario movie this weekend. Not great. We were hyping up Saturday quite a bit, anticipating Saturday quite a bit. You had the Nuggets taking on the San Antonio Spurs, and you had the Avalanche facing the Dallas Stars. And in the world we live in, chances were that at least one of those games would not be what we hoped it would be. Both of those games lived up to the hype and then some. We got two, and this is an overused phrase. You know, this feels like a playoff game. They say that every time two playoff teams match up, right? It's a way to hype up the broadcast, and I get it. Both of those games truly felt like playoff games. You truly felt like you got the best of all four of those teams. I mean, tip of the cap to the Stars and to the Spurs as well. I mean, that's, we want a certain team to win in these matchups. But how fun are the Spurs? And I know nobody wants to say anything nice about Dallas, but that is a whale of a hockey team. And what we got on Saturday were two games that felt like playoff games, had playoff intensity. The teams played at a playoff level. And we got two amazing contests over the weekend to talk about today. So, pleased about that as much as anything else. But the fact that the two right teams came out on the right side of them made it even better. So, I'll talk about both. Let me start with the Denver Nuggets. And what Saturday, was. Yesterday is known most notably for not being Saturday. That was the Denver Nuggets signaling something that I have felt all along. Like, let's not be so quick to crown San Antonio. We've seen this with both the Avalanche and the Denver Nuggets building their way towards a title team. They're like, and this sounds a little corny, but like there are dues that you got to pay, and there's timing, and I have felt like as terrific of a basketball team as the San Antonio Spurs are, and they're terrific. And they may run this league before too long, just like the Duncan Spurs did. But it's not now. For a team to just show up relatively out of nowhere like the Spurs have, and not only are you saying, not you, but people are saying, oh, they're automatically the biggest threat to Oklahoma City. not taking into account most notably the Denver Nuggets, who took OKC to 7 games last year. But they're ready. Those same people are ready to just say San Antonio's beating Oklahoma City. And you give them credit for beating OKC during the regular season, but it's different. Playoff basketball is different. And what you got on Saturday was a playoff game at Ball Arena. And the Nuggets won. And the Nuggets won, yes, because of the brilliance of Nikola Jokic, as per usual. Jamal Murray hit some big buckets, but I look at that game and I say, this is what it looks like when they have Aaron Gordon. And now that Cam Johnson has found his way in the role he has been given. And I'm devoting an entire segment next hour on Jokic and his performance in that game. So don't think that I'm glossing over what he was able to do, especially down the stretch of that basketball game with Victor Wembanyama guarding him. But in watching that game, the two guys that just continued to pop up and help the Denver Nuggets win that game were Aaron Gordon and Cam Johnson. And we've talked about this when Aaron Gordon's been out. Like, I can't say that Aaron Gordon is the best player or even the second best player on the Denver Nuggets the way that Jamal Murray is playing this year. But it's, and I don't know. Can you say that Aaron Gordon is the most important Nugget? No, because Jokic. But man, is he important. Man, do they have to have that guy. It's a non-negotiable. If they don't have Aaron Gordon healthy in the postseason, they're not winning. They're just not. And maybe the list is Jokic, Murray, and Aaron Gordon. They got to have those three. Anybody else, you could kind of, all right, they don't have Cam Johnson. They don't have Christian Brown, Tim Hardaway. You go down the list. You go, all right, maybe, I mean, they didn't have Peyton Watson the other day, and they still ended up winning the game. But those three are the non-negotiables. They have to have all three of them, and they have to have all three of them right, healthy, and playing at a high level. If they get that, as they did on Saturday, they're going to beat San Antonio in a 7-game series, and they're going to push Oklahoma City. And even if I would still take OKC to win a 7-game series right now with the Denver Nuggets, it's not to say that Oklahoma City is going to dispatch the Denver Nuggets quickly. But Aaron Gordon, you've heard me say it before, he ties everything together. He does so many things to pick up for what others don't. Or pick up for, you know, the one or two things that Nikola Jokic can't do, which is about it on a basketball court. Maybe one or two things Nikola Jokic can't do. Aaron Gordon picks up for that. And I don't think Jamal Murray played bad by any stretch of the imagination, but it wasn't what Jamal Murray's been doing lately. But Aaron Gordon was terrific in that game. 15.6 rebounds. Those aren't numbers that are going to wow you. But man, you'd be hard-pressed to find any one of those 15 points and 6 rebounds that weren't huge, that didn't help move the needle towards the Denver Nuggets winning that game. And then something that does not show up on a box score, that only shows up if you're watching the game. How about the defense that Aaron Gordon played against Victor Wembanyama at the end of regulation? Like, I don't know what you can do on Victor Wembanyama, like realistically, consistently what you can do defensively against this guy. But I'll take what Aaron Gordon did at the end of regulation against him and say that's about the best. That's about the best thing you can do. And Aaron Gordon heavily contested that shot and to get that game to overtime. And then the Denver Nuggets took control from there and won 136 to 134. But let's not be so quick to anoint San Antonio. Their time will come. Trust me. Their time will come, and they may stay up there for a while. But let's see this thing through. We got 7 games of OKC in Denver last year. We know that Denver wasn't right with the injury to both Michael Porter and Aaron Gordon especially. Can we see that again with a healthy Aaron Gordon? Can we just see it again? And if OKC beats them, then we can have the uncomfortable conversation about whether the championship window has closed on the Denver Nuggets and all that stuff. But let's see it again. And it's not just a rooting interest. And it's not just this indefinable, like, unwritten rules of the NBA, like you got to wait your turn. They showed you on Saturday that we're not done with Nuggets OKC. We're not done with those two recent NBA champions matching up again in the postseason. And as it sits right now, it would be in round 2. But I talked about this on Friday, and things have gotten worse for the LA Lakers. But I said it on Friday, the Nuggets are taking the 3 seed. And maybe that means Minnesota round 1. And I think that, like I said on Friday, that's fitting. I think what I'm saying about, let's give Denver another shot against OKC, I think Minnesota fans have every right to say, hold on, if you're glossing over the Denver Nuggets in round 1, like, we have something to say about that. We've beaten them. Let us show you again that maybe the Nuggets aren't rid of us yet. And then you would get, if the Nuggets were to get through Minnesota, you'd get San Antonio and Denver in round 2. And I would take the Denver Nuggets, even with their issues. And heaven knows I've harped on a few of them this season. But I've stayed consistent. It's not San Antonio's time. And a great stat that Ray got me onto today, which speaks to not just Nuggets versus Spurs, but the Spurs perhaps not being ready quite yet. 14 double-digit leads, including Saturday, that they have squandered and lost a basketball game this year. And by the way, Saturday was the second time they've done that to Denver, with Denver. I know people don't put a lot of stock into the previous matchup between those two teams because Wemby didn't play, but that was the Spurs with their foot on the throat of the Denver Nuggets and not being able to close that game out. That's twice now. The last 2 times these two teams have met, the Denver Nuggets have rallied from double digits down. That means something. That's the sign, as talented as San Antonio is, they are young. They're a young team with a young head coach. And learning how to put teams away is part of the evolution and the growing process of a franchise. The Denver Nuggets went through that. And to be able to do it in the postseason is exponentially more difficult. And I love that basketball game. I love the San Antonio Spurs and the way they play. And Victor Wembanyama is the guy. He is the face of the league. I've already said that, and he's going to continue to be. Their time is coming. The Nuggets sent a message on Saturday, not yet. You need to wait your turn. We got unfinished business with the now reigning NBA champions. And I think that's where we're heading. But in order to get there, they got to have Aaron Gordon. I have Ray refreshing Twitter every 5 seconds to see if Aaron Gordon's sitting tonight, because we are both of the mind that Aaron Gordon should not play against the. And it's funny, load management, you acknowledge it's a big problem in the NBA, right? And I think that way too. And then it's your team and you're like, no, load management. Guy played over 40 minutes on Saturday and went down and got hurt at some point. They got to get Aaron Gordon there. They get Aaron Gordon there. They're going to match up with OKC at some point, and a healthy Aaron Gordon above, along with, Murray playing at this level and Jokic playing at his level, and the depth and all that kind of stuff right there at the top. And the differences. Why do you argue that Denver's going to beat OKC if you're out there doing that? Aaron Gordon. First and foremost. That's the difference. 25-9. The Denver Nuggets are this season when Aaron Gordon's in the lineup. They need him. And they needed him Saturday and came through in a big way. 136-134. The final. Take your thoughts on that at 719-247-1313. Coming up next, an even bigger win was the one that the Avs had on Saturday against Dallas. We'll talk about that game next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Tax day is almost here, but don't stress. Enter the Uncle Sam's giveaway for a chance to win $5,000 to bail you out. Head to extrasports1300.com or kvor.com to enter this national contest. Again, to win $5,000 with the Uncle Sam's giveaway, sponsored locally by Kruger Brothers Construction. Plan now, build stress-free. As great of a win as it was for the Denver Nuggets to beat San Antonio, and it was the biggest win of the weekend, went to the Colorado Avalanche, and the simple reason is because there is a chance that the better team out of Denver and San Antonio is still not the best team in the NBA. Dallas versus Colorado is about who the best team in the NHL is. And we have to be fair with the way that the season series has gone. And I know this is the way I look at things, and not everybody shares my worldview, but I will defend to my own death my perspective on the NHL. 3 games all decided by a shootout. I don't care who comes out on top. That means we don't know truly who's better, Dallas or Colorado. Those are 3 ties as far as I'm concerned. Even though I hate 3-on-3 overtime, that would be something where I got to go, maybe. Maybe you got to give the nod to the team that wins. But a shootout, come on now. We could not until Saturday make heads or tails of how a 7-game series would go between the Stars and the Colorado Avalanche. And I know Stars fans will point out all the players that they had missing, and there were a few of them. None of them are as good at their job as Cale Makar, so let's be a little bit fair here. Avs didn't have him. What you saw was exactly what you would expect to see if these two teams meet up round 2. And I'll let Jared Bednar explain what it is that I mean.
It's so evenly matched teams, and it's like one play in every game we played them. It's one play, one team capitalizing on a chance, a goalie making a save, maybe a power play or penalty kill. It's a fine line between winning and losing when we play these guys. And it's, you look at the standings, we're right there beside each other for a reason. And so, there's things in every game that I like, and there's some things in the games that I don't like that we have to be aware of. And it's just the way it's going to go when you play the Dallas Stars.
The reason why through 3 games of the season series, you can't truly decide who would win a 7-game series is because they have been dead even. And in the end, all that the Avs were better because you could take out the empty netter. It's one goal. It's one goal that is essentially the difference between these two teams during the regular season. One. The difference between these two teams is virtually nothing. And when you are so evenly matched, you start to go down the list and you decide, okay, what's going to ultimately make the difference? I'll give you 3 things that I believe will ultimately decide this series between Dallas and Colorado. It's not Nathan MacKinnon. It's not Mikko Rantanen. I know what happened last year. That was real. I should say that really happened. Mikko Rantanen is not going to do that again. And you can come back to me in a month or so and give me the business if Mikko Rantanen has the same level of performance that he did. I just think it was this confluence of events. He's a phenomenal player, but it's the confluence of events of the winding road that he's taking and him being blindsided by the trade. And he just so happens to be meeting this team in round one, all the motivation. You can't keep up that level of motivation. Mikko Rantanen may have contempt for the Colorado Avalanche franchise. It's not at the level it was a year ago. That was, and you hate if you're an Avs fan to be on the wrong end of it, but that was one of those spectacular moments that sports provides where you have skill that meets willpower. And all in Mikko Rantanen's head was, I want to beat the crap out of that team. You're not going to get that level of performance from Mikko Rantanen again. And I expect him to have a fine series against the Colorado Avalanche. It's not going to come down to him. It's not going to come down to McKinnon. It's not going to come down to Makar. The three things that a series with the Stars will come down to are those little things in the margins that tip the scales one way or another. One is depth. I know Marty Necas is getting all the shine for the goal he scored, and it was a phenomenal play from Lehkonen to set up Necas, and we got to give a little bit more breathing room to talk about Marty Necas and what he has been. But a guy, it's kind of like the Nuggets in Spurs game. Yeah, Nikola Jokic, you marvel at what he did. But I go down the pecking order a little bit. You know, the guy that I loved his game the most against Dallas, it was Jack Drury. I thought Jack Drury was fantastic. He had two huge blocks, including one when Dallas pulled the goalie with a little over 2 minutes left. He makes a huge block. He made one early in the game where he's like crawling to the bench because he was struck so flush with the puck. He made a great poke check at one point in the game too. I thought Jack Drury was terrific. And the thing I love the most, and the thing you should love the most if you're an Avs fan, him jumping Maverick Bourque. Bourque is just sitting there, and it seems so innocent, right? You don't fully know if Wedgwood has the puck frozen, so you kind of give him a couple of taps with the stick to see if you could jar the puck loose. And Jack Drury is like, no, you're not doing that to my goaltender. And he literally jumped him. He jumped in the air, came down, and attacked Maverick Bourque. That is exactly what you want from a guy in your bottom six. And if you think back to the Avs Stanley Cup run, you think of the goal Darren Helm scored. You think of Logan O'Connor and the impact he made. When you have two teams that are so evenly matched, as Dallas and Colorado are, it could be those last three forwards. It could be that those three forwards on that last line that make the difference. Because, like, yeah, McKinnon's the best, but Mikko Rantanen's probably the second best. And then it's, I guess it would be Nathan McKinnon and then Cale Makar. But then you have Mikko Rantanen and Miro Heiskanen, and you just kind of go down the list. It could be a Jack Drury that makes the difference in a series between these guys. It could be a Logan O'Connor or Parker Kelly. And how impactful have those two guys been? Especially Parker Kelly. And it's not just production, which has been the story with Parker Kelly, but it's those little things that Jack Drury did in that game that could make the difference. So that's one. Two is special teams. Avs didn't score on the power play, but neither did Dallas. Remember how Dallas's power play just killed the Colorado Avalanche. That's gonna make a big difference in this series again. And the Avs were able to kill off every Dallas power play. And then you go to the third thing, which I don't know and I'll say depth will go to the Avs. Special teams, I got to see if this newfound Avalanche power play exists when these two teams meet up to decide who has that. But one, I thought, oh, surely it would be in Dallas's favor with Jake Ottinger. And Ottinger didn't play on Saturday. It was DeSmith. I don't know, man. Scott Wedgwood. Scott Wedgwood and the way he play, like, I cover this team on a daily basis. I watch nearly every minute of every game. It jogged my memory on ABC on Saturday that he leads the league in goals allowed average and save percentage. Scott Wedgwood does. Leads the league. We've been so caught up on whether he's better than Mackenzie Blackwood, we forgot to ask the question of whether Scott Wedgwood is better than every other goalie in the league with those numbers. Here's Jared Bednar on his goalie, and why kind of speaks to the trouble I have had with Scott Wedgwood this season.
This season, though, the consistency in his game for the course of a full season has been, it's fascinating, really, because you know what his career looks like, and he's back up, and then all of a sudden he comes in for us, and he's just doing an incredible job every time he gets in there. So super consistent, high level of hockey for him. I'm sure the longest and best stretch of his career, and it's sometimes it's just maturity, it's fit, it's, you know, players are always working to improve, and he hasn't stopped, and it's showing in his play.
He's a career backup. That's the issue. That's what the issue I have had with Scott Wedgwood. Even though statistically he's been better than Mackenzie Blackwood the whole way through, why I kept as recently as maybe 2 weeks ago going, yeah, I still think it's Mackenzie Blackwood. It's because it's hard to wrap your head around the fact that Scott Wedgwood, with the career he has been able to be in net as much as he has for the Avalanche this year and played at this level. Now, I would still tomorrow probably take Jake Ottinger in the matchup of the goalies, but at some point, and that some point is going to be the playoffs. At some point, you got to ask the question, you know, is this just who Scott Wedgwood is now? Never thought this guy would be able to play at this level, if I'm being honest. But that's me being beholden to the story of Scott Wedgwood. It's a new chapter, what he's been with the Colorado Avalanche and what he's been specifically this season. So while Jake Ottinger, I still think, is the better goalie, again, how close is the margin? And if it's close enough that some other advantage that the Avalanche have can push them over the top. I think that's the way I look at this series. But trust me, if these two teams match up in round 2, we will either be talking about the depth of the Avalanche, which Chris McFarland traded Mikko Rantanen, right? That chain reaction, the series of moves that he made, starting with the Mikko Rantanen trade. Well, really starting with the goalie trades. But in terms of the skaters, started with Mikko Rantanen, and it just continued on. All the guy and culminated with Nazem Kadri. We'll be talking about the depth being the difference. We'll talk about special teams, or we'll talk about goaltending. And that's not new. If you follow hockey, those are the things that ultimately decide a series as close as you look at it on paper as Dallas and Colorado. But they got all those things. Special teams was where it needed to be. The depth of the Avalanche was better than the depth of the Dallas Stars, and maybe Dallas fans will argue when they get everybody back that they're deeper, and I think they are. I still think that the Avs might be a deeper team, though. Even both teams fully healthy, I think the Avs are deeper. Nazem Kadri is their third-line center, for Pete's sake. And Scott Wedgwood was terrific. Now, the Avs couldn't finish the job last night against St. Louis and clinch this number 1 seed, but it's happening. That was any chance that Dallas had, which I don't think was a great chance, even going into Saturday, was gone after the Avs not only beat them, but beat them in regulation. 2-0 the final score. Take your thoughts, 719-247-1313. Coming up next, Michael Malone, former Nuggets coach, has found another job, but I don't think a lot of people saw this coming. That's next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. You know, we were just talking about the Avalanche, their big win over Dallas. We won't spend a lot of time talking about last night because that's not nearly as fun. And this is positive vibes on this Monday. Ball Arena hits different because of you, Avs faithful. Join us April 16th for Fan Appreciation Night as we celebrate the best fans and cheer on your Avs as they take on the Kraken at 8:30 p.m. Find your tickets at coloradoavalanche.com/theme nights. Yep, playoffs right around the bend in both the NBA and the NHL. Why this is the best part of the sports calendar. Speaking of the Kroenke sports empire, Michael Malone has found gainful employment back in the coaching ranks. He's going to North Carolina, not to coach the Hornets, to coach the Tar Heels. And when I heard that news, as so many things said to me by Ray, my immediate thought was, I didn't even think Michael Malone liked coaching guys in their early 20s. You go back to his time with the Denver Nuggets, he hated those guys, and now he's going to have a team full of them? So that was my initial thought, and then I'm like, oh, but wait. There is no power struggle in the North Carolina organization like there was that ultimately meant his end in Denver. There's no Calvin Booth. And even if they need somebody in that spot, it's going to be like Belichick with Mike Lombardi, and it's just going to be his buddy. So, like, the news kind of hit my ear wrong. I'm like, what, Michael Malone's going to college? And then the more I thought about it, I'm like, this might actually be perfect for Michael Malone. And let's add another dynamic, which is just really cool. It's not any indicator of whether Michael Malone is going to be successful at the collegiate level, but his daughter goes there. Now, somebody should ask his daughter how she feels about dad being on campus, but for Michael Malone, that's got to be amazing. So I don't know how you could be, no matter how things ended here, you got to be happy for Michael Malone. What a cool opportunity. And to have family close by, he can move it. You know, his wife would come with him and they would have, I mean, that's just awesome. Good for Michael Malone. And that's what he deserves. Like, I can say that I agreed with what Josh Kroenke did this time last year. We're coming up on the 1 year anniversary, aren't we, of the cleaning of the house with just 3 games left in the regular season. But for what he did for the Denver Nuggets, Michael Malone deserves to get a great gig somewhere else. It had run its course with the Nuggets. I think this opportunity is great. And it's going to be, I think it's going to be the thought process behind hiring Bill Belichick without some of the ancillary Bill Belichick stuff. And by ancillary Bill Belichick stuff, I mean ancillary Bill Belichick people. If you are catching my drift here. Because Michael Malone, and I saw a tweet from my good friend Paul Klee, the editor of the Denver Gazette. I think it was spot on. Michael Malone's going to be, like, you saw Illinois and their starting 5. That's going to be North Carolina's. Michael Malone has seen what Europe can bring you on the basketball court. The Tar Heels are going to be importing some basketball players from Europe. And maybe that's what gets around, my initial thought, which was, Jalen Pickett, Julian Strother, Zeke Naji, et cetera, and his unwillingness to play those guys, here would be a nice compromise. Like, I'll play guys in their early 20s, but they're going to come from Europe. I'm going to be searching for my Nikola Jokic. And while you may say, I mean, that's silly, you're not going to find another Nikola Jokic. I don't know. Watch the national championship tonight. Look at Michigan. They don't have Nikola Jokic, but it sure seems like Dusty May has a type. Those great passing big men. I think that's the archetype you're looking for. Yeah, if you could stumble across another Nikola Jokic, then that's great. But I think with what Jokic was able to do with the Nuggets, with his passing ability, I think that's kind of what Michael Malone's going to be looking for. And I think Michigan has it. I think you're going to see it tonight. And it was even last year with Danny Wolf in the crew that the Wolverines had. That's just Dusty May and the type of players he wants. I would say that North Carolina will look a lot like Michigan with Michael Malone at the helm. I think this has a chance to really work. I really do. Now, you could say that college athletics are looking more like pro sports, and you would be right in that, but it's not a certainty that Michael Malone's going to work at the collegiate level, because it's more like college sport. It's more like pro sports in the college ranks. It's not the NBA. It's not, though. It stops short. There are nuanced differences here, like a portal that Michael Malone's going to have to deal with. You can't, the Nuggets have locked up how many people over the years? Jokic and Murray and Gordon and Brown. And, North Carolina is not going to have that kind of roster continuity. Can Michael Malone do it year in and year out? That's going to be the expectation. This is North Carolina we're talking about. It's not, hey, once every 4 years, get us deep in the tournament. It's going to be, regardless of what happens in the portal, reload. So it's not a guarantee that'll work. But I always say this with new coaching hires. Is the thought process, is the reasoning behind hiring somebody sound? Does it make sense for where the organization, or in this case, the program is at this moment? And with North Carolina basketball and what Michael Malone brings to the table, I think it is the right decision. And I hope he does well. When I was younger, I was a Duke fan, so I don't love that school in Chapel Hill, but I like Michael Malone, and he deserves to have success somewhere else. And it didn't seem like the NBA was knocking on his door. And I'll tell you the easy reason why. Who hires coaches? Guys that had the same title as Calvin Booth did. The last couple of years haven't been because Michael Malone's not a good coach. It's because he doesn't play well with the general manager. And other GMs noticed. Especially if they're a general manager on a bit of a hot seat, I'm going to bring in this guy who may not be in lockstep and may be very opinionated. That's why Michael Malone's still at ESPN. But this is why this is such a good fit, because Michael Malone, the type of players he wants, the style of play he wants, his rotations, he can run his starting five into the ground and no one can say boo because he's the boss. I think he has a chance to really, really work in Chapel Hill, and I hope it does, because Michael Malone did a lot for the Nuggets. My buddy Derek texted me, said, love the Malone hire at UNC. I do too. I do too. 719-247-1313. take your thoughts. Michael Malone on his way to North Carolina to coach the Tar Heels. That came out left field, didn't it? I didn't even hear Michael Malone at all mentioned, and I don't know if he was their first choice. I think it was. I'll just say this: it's not a coincidence that Tommy Lloyd signed an extension at Arizona over the weekend. I'll just say that in terms of whether Michael Malone was their first choice, but that doesn't. The right choice isn't always necessarily the first choice. Good for Michael Malone. Wemby versus Jokic next. Welcome in. Appreciate you stopping by and for watching the show, as you can do in addition to listening. Probably only need to do one or the other. I mean, I certainly do appreciate, if you want to go full immersive experience and have the radio on while watching on social media, I'm not going to tell you no. I'm just saying probably one at a time is just fine. And you can find this show live streaming anywhere you scroll at 740 KVOR, at Extra Sports 1300. And while you are there, make sure that you drop a comment and you will be a part of the show in that way. You can also reach out in a more traditional fashion by calling or texting into the show at 719-247-1313. The Denver Nuggets got the better of the San Antonio Spurs, 136-134. And normally I would hesitate, and I always fall into this trap, and we collectively fall into this trap. One of the big disappointments I have, and it cuts both ways. So I'm not just saying, opponents do this when they deal with Nikola Jokic, because the Nuggets do it as well. How many times throughout the game did Wemby and Jokic guard each other? Less than a handful, right? So when we hype up these matchups as Jokic versus Wemby, we really are hyping them up and saying Jokic versus Wemby the same way we say Josh Allen versus Lamar Jackson. Now, the two shall meet periodically, but it's really a stat accumulation contest between Wemby and Jokic. It's not them going one-on-one. And this was the case with Embiid. When that was the hot rivalry, the one time a year it happened because Joel Embiid refused to play in Denver. But even on Saturday, we didn't get a ton of Wemby versus Jokic. It was Wemby versus Aaron Gordon, Wemby versus Jamal Murray, which is not a good matchup for the Nuggets. It's Jokic versus Steph Castle. But there were moments. Now, Nikola Jokic did not drop all 40 of his points against Victor Wembanyama. But he dropped probably the four most important points of the game on Victor Wembanyama. Take a listen.
Jokic guarded by Wemby, 9 on the shot clock. He's on the right-hand side. Backs him down in the paint. Gets double teamed. Fade away. God! Oh, my God! You know how hard that shot is? Denver leads it by 4, 133-129.
And that was essentially the dagger. San Antonio would only go on to score 134 points, but the biggest shot of the game was Nikola Jokic over Victor Wembanyama. And he had a floater as well over Wemby. For the game, Jokic, 40 points, 13 assists, and 8 rebounds. Wemby, 34 points, 18 rebounds, and 7 assists. I would say Jokic by a nose, which is not a play on the fact that Victor early in the game accidentally hit Nikola Jokic in the nose. I would say that Jokic, all told, got the better of Victor Wembanyama. Nuggets won. Statistically, I think Jokic was better, and the biggest shot of the game was Jokic over Wemby. And maybe Wemby goes on to win the MVP. The MVP is who is the story of this NBA season, because I'm not going to do the thing that Joel Embiid apologists did all those some years ago, Where it'd be like, look at Embiid's numbers against Jokic. First of all, they don't guard each other. Second of all, it's one game in 82. If you're putting everything on that, then next year just pick out who your MVP candidates are, and when they play each other in October, just send in your ballot. It's about 82 games. And to me, the story of these 82 games has been Victor Wembanyama more than Nikola Jokic. But what that matchup was, what that moment, I think signified. I think there's some symbolism to that shot. That symbolized maybe Wemby is the MVP. Not even maybe. He'd be my vote for MVP. But best player in the world, best player in the league, hit a shot over Victor Wembanyama. That was Nikola Jokic. And I'm sure it's the furthest thing from Nikola Jokic's mind. But what that moment signified is this may be your year, Wemby, but this is Jokic's league. Who Nikola Jokic is and what he means to the NBA is greater than any one season. Since the death of the Warrior dynasty, no team, no player has done something more significant over the last 7 years than Nikola Jokic. And while some websites, The Ringer, want to quickly move on so they can get clicks and they can spur conversation, they'll move Shea above Nikola Jokic for the best player in the world, but you don't need to pay any attention to that because that's wrong. Nikola Jokic is the best player in this league. Has been for a few years now. In one season, even approaching 2 for Shea is not enough, and certainly Victor Wembanyama is not there yet. The Jokic-Wemby thing is kind of a microcosm of what I started the show today with, which is the Spurs, it's not their time yet. If anybody's going to knock off Oklahoma City, it's Denver. They're at the front of the line. Spurs might be right behind them, but they're going to have to wait their turn. It's the same thing with Jokic and Wemby. There may come a day where Victor Wembanyama is the undisputed best player in the world. But that's not right now. And that's what that shot signified. And even Nikola Jokic agrees with me in that the day may be coming that Victor Wembanyama runs this league.
I mean, he's definitely. I think the first time I played against him, I told you guys that he's going to change the league and he's just going to change the basketball. And I still, how to say, think that. And I think he has opportunity and chance to be the most unique basketball player ever played the game. So, is it fun? Yes, but it's fun against everybody. You know, it's every different team give you different challenges, so just because I think the league is so talented.
And look, and I believe Jokic that last part because I think Jokic loves the puzzle every night. Now, some nights, Oklahoma City, he looks like he's not enjoying himself. But in his mind, I think he enjoys figuring out and picking apart the players or the teams that he goes up against. And I think that's what the second part of that line was, yeah, he enjoys playing against the Lakers or the Wolves or the, OKC, all that kind of stuff. But I remember saying this one of the first times that Jokic and Wemby met. And I listened to Nikola Jokic speak, and it was those sentiments that he was echoing in that clip you just heard. And it's like, I think Jokic, and there's got to be a better comparison to this, but, forgive me for being a father here. When Megamind, so dumb, but please, I'm going somewhere with this. If you have a better example of this, it's a fairly popular movie trope. Megamind needed someone, right? He had, the Brad Pitt, Mr. Incredible, or whatever his name was. I get him mixed up, but he disappeared. And Megamind was, going around the city, and he had no challenges. There was nothing going on. He ruled. He wanted somebody to emerge, and he manufactured this new superhero. And I won't spoil it for you, but there's quite the twist in terms of who ends up being the good guy and who ends up being the bad guy. But I thought in Victor Wembanyama, Nikola Jokic saw a challenge unlike any that's ever been presented to him. And finally, he had his foe. Finally, he had an adversary that could challenge him in a way that no one else in the NBA really has been able to over the last few years. And I think the competitor in Nikola Jokic loved that. So he can say he loves going against everybody in the league. And all of them present different challenges that push the IQ of the smartest basketball player in the NBA. But they're not like Wemby. There's more. Trust me. There's more with Nikola Jokic and Victor Wembanyama. Victor Wembanyama brings out the best in Nikola Jokic. And look at the numbers. Again, I know that Wemby's not guarding Jokic every time down the floor, but just the idea that here's this alien, give him the nickname he wants. There's this alien on the other side of the court. And Nikola Jokic gets up for those games and wants to play at his best in those games. And then in those scant few moments when Mitch Johnson would dare to put Victor Wembanyama over Nikola Jokic. And again, to be fair, it's not like Jokic was D'ing up Victor Wembanyama a lot on Saturday. But those scant few moments where they matched up, I didn't see Jokic's face, but I would imagine his eyes lit up. Maybe not necessarily because he knew that he was going to get the better of Wemby, but just because he had the opportunity. There are few things in the NBA right now that have the potential to be as special as Victor Wembanyama and Nikola Jokic in a 7-game series. And David Adelman certainly understands what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's good for sports. I mean, the way they both do it is completely different. And at the same time, it's its own unique, awesome thing. And like I said, that's what I was talking about buying a ticket to this. You're not going to see two people like this in many generations. It's just good for basketball, both guys. And this conference is so loaded. So, yeah, this is definitely a fan kind of game. Sometimes not for a coach, I'll tell you that much, because both guys can do things that are unguardable at times.
This is what the NBA should lean into. If the NBA wanted a positive spin, if they wanted something positive to talk about, this should be it. If we get, and I think we're going to, Nuggets right now, even with the Lakers for the 3 seed, Lakers don't have Luka, and now they don't have Austin Reeves. To say nothing of the fact that the Nuggets have won how many in a row, Ray? Shout it out. 8? To say nothing of the way that the Nuggets are playing, the Lakers cannot hold off this team. And then you just go, Oklahoma City, don't you mess this up. Don't you mess this up. You stay at the 1, and we'll progress this way. It'll be Denver and Minnesota potentially putting an end to all those previous trials and tribulations going up against Anthony Edwards and company. Then it's Jokic versus Wemby for 7 games. And then it's the Nuggets getting their shot at OKC, or at least, or either way, if you're the NBA, you gotta love it, right? Rematch between Nuggets and OKC, or you get, is what San Antonio did to OKC in the regular season real enough? I mean, with all the negative going around the NBA, this has a chance to set up quite nicely for the NBA to have a really good playoff run. And if it's Wemby and Jokic for 7 games, I don't know what you put up elsewhere in the league, East, West, any matchup, any storyline that could be cooler than Victor Wembanyama and Nikola Jokic, even if they don't guard each other, just dominating everyone else, like across the battlefield, looking at each other, trying to one-up each other. We got to get that. We got to get 7 games of these two guys. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on Jokic versus Wemby, or the bigger picture of the Nuggets taking out the Spurs on Saturday. Coming up next, don't love that the Avs had to turn around and play a game the very next day after beating the Dallas Stars, and the result they got was pretty much what I expected. That's next here on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Tax day is almost here, but don't stress. Enter the Uncle Sam's giveaway for a chance to win $5,000 to bail you out. Head to extrasports1300.com or kvor.com to enter this national contest for your chance to win $5,000 with the Uncle Sam's giveaway, sponsored locally by Kruger Brothers Construction. Plan now. Build stress free. 719-247-1313 is the phone and text line, conveniently so, for you to give your thoughts. Covered a lot of ground already. I go to producer extraordinaire Ray Dominguez to give us the latest on the text line.
Ryan, any concerns about one, both, or neither?
Okay.
Avs 1-5-1 at home. No shots versus the Blues over 10 minutes in the first period. Or is this good timing to get this out of the way before the playoffs start? Scott implores it.
I think that this team is quite inconsistent right now, which is not ideal. But if you're looking specifically at the Blues game, so I guess the short answer would be the first one is what I would be mildly worried about if I'm an Avs fan, because it speaks to a bigger picture. As far as that St. Louis game, that was bound to happen. Like, I know you hate to say it, you don't want to believe it's true, but it's true. The Avs were going to throw out a stinker. They just were. Forget what happened previously before the Dallas game. That what Dallas took out of them, what that game meant, what it took out of them, and the way that game went last night was going to be bad. It just was. And Marty Necas talked about this after the Dallas game as more of a nod to what happened, maybe against Vancouver. But I think what Marty Necas is speaking to is kind of a universal truth when it comes to teams that are kind of set in what they are. There are not a lot of questions surrounding the Colorado Avalanche right now, and I think Marty Necas is being quite honest when he says this.
Sometimes it's really hard to get, prepared mentally for every game, and I feel like the last game, especially in our heads, we weren't ready, and a couple of days off, and coming into this game, we knew it's a big one. I felt like we played really good defensively, didn't give up much.
He's admitting that they looked past Vancouver. But I also think if you were to ask Marty Necas after the St. Louis game, I think he might say something similar. When you have very few worlds left to conquer, not much left to prove, it is very difficult to lock in night in and night out at this stage of the season. You love the Avs to be able to do that. And that's why I'm saying I can't completely dismiss the first thing you brought up, because this has been going on for a little while now. But I can tell you at the heart of it is what Marty Necas is talking about. This team is so ready for the postseason. They have proven they've literally beaten every team in the NHL. They did that the other night against Calgary. They beat every single team in the NHL. There is no team that you go, well, maybe can they beat them? They've beaten everybody. They built themselves a comfortable enough lead even before the Dallas game to make you feel like it was inevitable they would get the number one seed, and then they beat Dallas in regulation. And on the heels of that, you got to turn around, come right back home, and play St. Louis. It's not the best quality of a team, but you can kind of understand it a little bit. So while the more worrisome thing would be the first thing, not how they performed last night. The fact that maybe last night wasn't a new thing would be the more worrisome thing. But in the playoffs, you don't play back-to-backs, and every game you know for a fact you have to get up for the game. I don't put as much stock in the Avalanche inconsistency of late as maybe some people would. And maybe I'm giving them a pass. But it's been a pattern, since we've been talking so much about the Nuggets and the Avalanche. It just feels like the Avalanche have earned the benefit of the doubt way more than the Denver Nuggets. It seems like every time I am critical of the Avalanche or they put up a terrible performance and it's like, okay, what's going on here? They respond. And I told you after the Vancouver game, they're going to respond. Right? The game before Calgary didn't play great, and they came out and scored 9 goals against Calgary. They didn't play well against Vancouver, and they absolutely locked in and played a tremendous hockey game against the Dallas Stars. Every time, this team always responds. I also don't think, until recently, that they've suffered from the same affliction that the Nuggets have at times in routinely losing to bad teams. They usually look at those opportunities as a chance to, stat pad and have a fun night where everybody eats. The Denver Nuggets seem to struggle sometimes with the Utahs of the world and the Washingtons of the world. The Avs usually take care of business. So the bigger picture always means more, and I think in the bigger picture than even the last 7 games, under Jared Bednar, with Nathan McKinnon and Gabriel Landeskog, you see a team that always responds when it is being asked of them. Doesn't mean you love what's going on, because Jared Bednar doesn't. But I think this team has earned a little bit of the benefit of the doubt to know that they'll be ready. And also, let's not, we talked about Scott Wedgwood in hour number 1. Mackenzie Blackwood just hasn't. It really has gotten even easier for Jared Bednar to make his decision for who starts game 1 of the playoffs. It's getting easier every single day. You're just not getting the same level of goaltending from Mackenzie Blackwood the last couple of weeks. And I would say, and I don't know for a fact off the top of my head, I look and see the games that the Avs have lost. In fact, what shoulda, woulda, coulda. Let's look here, because I have a theory, a game theory that I would like to go through. So the Avs over the last few games. So last night they lose. Blackwood is in goal. They lose against, they beat Dallas. Wedgwood is in goal. They did lose to Vancouver with Wedgwood in goal. They beat Calgary with Wedgwood in goal, and they lost to Winnipeg with Blackwood in goal. I would say with that, anecdotally, I think it feels like the Avs are having their lesser performances when Mackenzie Blackwood is in goal. Not 100% true all the time. It feels that way. Even regardless of the result, you just watch the games and it's not the same team playing in front of Mackenzie Blackwood as it is Scott Wedgwood, which should also be a sign that Jared Bednar takes very seriously. You should notice that. Who is the guy that, for whatever reason, and I don't think it's likability, I don't think it's necessarily has to be trust, but just for one reason or another, who the guys play better in front of? I guess lately, Vancouver notwithstanding, it's got Wedgwood. And I think that has to play into it. But overall, I think you could trust the Avs. I do. I think you could trust Jared Bednar, trust Cale Makar when he gets back, Gabriel Landeskog, Nathan McKinnon. This team usually does not disappoint. But a little senioritis, a little bit of seeing the finish line and understanding that their job is pretty much done for the regular season, and it's leading to some very bad results. 719-24-7. 1313 if you want to join in the conversation. In the meantime, if you're looking for TRT that's flexible enough for your lifestyle, head to Synergenics and Low T Center. You can choose testosterone shots, pills, or enclomifene. You may not know what it is. I didn't know what it was. Now I do because of Low T Center. I was educated on the subject, but the point is, different treatments available for you. That flexibility is what we're talking about. That boosting testosterone without affecting fertility. You could get your treatment in the clinic or have your testosterone shipped to your door. More flexibility. You can even choose self-pay or insurance coverage for the payment option that works for you. Flexibility. And starting April 1st, which is not today. Today's April 6th, so it's been going on for a little bit now. Synergenics and Low T Center are offering new treatment options, including PT-141, an FDA-approved libido-boosting peptide, new antioxidants, GLP-1 pills, and more. Boost energy, lose weight, increase confidence, and bring the heat back to the bedroom together. Want to explore treatments that work with your lifestyle and budget? Book your free T-test now at fixmylowt.com. That's fixmylowt.com. Nuggets fans, enter to win tickets to an upcoming Nuggets playoff game. Visit nuggets.media/Nuggets vote for your chance to enter and experience the postseason at Ball Arena. Nuggets.media/Nuggets win. Or it might be Nugget Swin. I don't know. The whole thing is pressed together. I can't tell. That'd be fun, winning tickets to a playoff game. Ray thinks that the Nuggets aren't even going to play the Spurs. Ray, you didn't think I was going to call you onto the carpet like this,
No,
but
I
I am.
Some hot
Please stand by it. If
All right.
I've had to own Josh Rosen for a
Remember,
decade
defend
now.
a bad take. Okay.
Defend a bad take.
Defend a bad take. We're working on it. All
Okay,
right.
so tell the people
Okay.
what you said about my perfect scenario in which the Nuggets exercise the Minnesota Demons and we get Jokic and Wemby for 7 games.
That's a dream scenario. Okay. However, the Spurs will have to play the 7th seed. As of right now, for the play-in tournament, the winner between the Clippers and the Suns will go to San Antonio. I think.
Wait, stop right there. Asking you out there listening, does that do anything? What Ray said there, does it tell me that you did not say okay and or so?
Look.
All right, go on, because I just
I'm going. If the Clippers get to San Antonio, because they're doing pretty well right now, and you have Kawhi in a playoff series, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have the young Spurs who don't know how to finish out a game. Could you see Kawhi knocking off the Spurs? And he's going to San Antonio. Revenge tour. Not really, but
I will admit this, that, and you and I have talked about this in the past, Kawhi deserves probably a suspension for circumventing the salary cap, but he deserves your respect as a basketball player, and he has been terrific this season, to your point. I would say last year's version of the Clippers were better than this year's version. Would you agree with that?
yes. Yeah, I would.
And the LA Clippers, I thought towards the end of their series with Denver, were, once there was that skirmish. What game was that? Game 2?
It was in LA, so I want to say game 2, yeah.
LA was the higher seed?
Yeah.
Must have been game 3. Nuggets were the higher seed than LA last year, right? I think it was game 3. You could double check my work on that. Game 3, when Harden and it was Christian Brown got into it at half court. I thought the series took a turn. And I thought that the Nuggets from then on out were the much better team than LA. So now I know the Spurs, 14 double-digit leads that they've blown, as you pointed out. I believe in Kawhi, but we're also, Toronto Kawhi is long gone, right? Like that was a long time ago now.
I know you said their team was better last year, but they also had playoff Harden last year, who was very inconsistent. Now they don't have that, right?
But they have playoff Darius Garland.
That's fair. They have playoff Batum, who couldn't miss.
It is right, playoff Batum. I'll just say it's not a ridiculous notion, and it speaks to what I've been saying about it not being San Antonio's time. There's a pecking order here. There's a timing of it all, very cosmic and mystical and all that kind of stuff. So I don't think it's not crazy, but I think that San Antonio just has more, like just way more than this Clippers.
I would
team
say
does.
It's not crazy. Like if the Suns win, I think it might even be a sweep. But if the Clippers go, I could see it going 6 or 7.
Tougher matchup would be the Clippers for sure.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with you on that. And I do think that the Clippers could. I mean, the Clippers push the Nuggets.
Yeah.
I just think you can't be so beholden to a series went 7 games or whatever and just say, they were close. Like, you watch those games, and the Nuggets were the much better team, I thought, after that than LA. All told, it's not crazy, and it just speaks to, can you really fully invest in San Antonio stock for this postseason? Can you really do that right now after, in the closest comparison you can make right now in sports was what New England did in the NFL this year.
Mm-hmm.
But there's, Drake May didn't have to go through, the Chiefs at the height of their powers, Lamar Jackson at the height of his powers, Josh Allen at the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the road for San Antonio is much more difficult. To your point, I still think they get through the first round, but the idea that they would have, a Denver or a Minnesota or maybe Lakers with Luka and the Thunder, the idea that San Antonio is going to come out of that, the Patriots took advantage of an AFC that was down, and credit to them for doing that. Sometimes the league is down and you got to be the team that stands atop that hill. I just think for San Antonio, it's a much more difficult road to get to an NBA Finals. So
I would agree.
So
yeah,
if
and same thing with Denver. Denver, you get through Minnesota, then San Antonio, then OKC.
Yeah, it's tougher for Denver.
Yeah, I would pick them to win it all at that point.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny how we keep talking about the West. Don't even mention the East. Like, I understand it's because Denver, we have to talk about that, but is there...
We're going to,
yeah.
and I tell you why we're going to. It's because I believe that the Celtics are going to represent the East. And I picked them at the beginning of the season with Tatum out. And certainly when he's back, I'm not going to pick against them. We will start talking about it as the herd gets thinned, in both in terms, just going from the regular season to the postseason. We'll start talking about the East, because I think Boston, you have some question about Tatum and whether this amount of games is enough for him to ramp up to play, what he is in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But Celtics are formidable for anybody. OKC, Denver, San Antonio, you name it. Celtics are formidable. But the reason we don't talk about the East is because the Celtics I was ahead of the curve with the Celtics, I guess, but there is no one else. Like, I'm sorry, if you're a fan of Cleveland, if you're a fan of New York, like, I have nothing against you. The Celtics are the only team I could fathom beating any of the title favorites out of the West.
Detroit?
Yeah, no. My question with Detroit, and I'm still saying with Kate Cunningham back in the fold, the way Detroit plays defense and their whole identity, which is very modern day bad boy Pistons, as much as you could get away with in today's NBA.
Yeah.
I think when everyone else gets to play at a level defensively, because everybody plays more physical, plays tougher in the playoffs. That's where I worry about Detroit, that I don't think they kind of just got here too, right?
Are they the East Spurs?
Right. So, yeah, and I like what Detroit's doing, and I love Kate Cunningham, but there isn't. It's Boston. It's Boston or it's nobody. I don't want to hear anybody arguing that the Knicks can beat anybody in the West or the Cavaliers can beat anybody in the West. They might be able to get out of the East. They're not beating the West. Only the Boston Celtics are going to beat a team coming out of the West. So that's why we don't talk about the East.
Hopefully we finally get the Denver-Boston finals. That was supposed to happen so many times, but never
How long have we been waiting for Boston and Denver, and we never were able to get it. So We'll see. I don't know about you. I think I'm done here with the regular season.
Oh.
Are we done here?
Yeah, I'm done.
Like Avs, you're not as big of a hockey guy as I am, but like with both the Nuggets and Avs, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's just get down. Because here's my thought. Because you look at the end of the Nuggets, and I guess they still have to decide the third seed, and I think the seed is important. But just from I'm going to be watching, and it's important that the Nuggets push through to the finish line and take advantage of what's going on with LA. But it's just, I look at the end of the season, and I look at San Antonio, and I look at OKC, and I'm like, how many important players are going to play between the two teams in those games?
Yeah, when is it time to start?
And even if the
Pulling
Nuggets
back.
have the 3 seed up for grabs, let's say if they win the last game of the season, I don't want to cause anybody flashbacks to the Michael Malone era, but if the Nuggets have a chance to get a seed that I think is preferable to the one they have, I don't think David Adelman is going to necessarily throw out Aaron Gordon. I think the Nuggets could sit some guys. I think Oklahoma City and San Antonio could as well.
I think these next 2 games are the most important. They play Trailblazers tonight. Wednesday, they play Memphis. You get those 2 wins.
Got to get these 2.
Hopefully, not hopefully, I'm not good, but the Lakers fall a little bit.
Mm.
And then you can kind of start resting a little bit because then you have the Thunder and the Spurs.
And I just don't think OKC and San Antonio are going to go into that with their full, because I don't think they care.
No, they're like,
nor should they.
We're here.
Nor should they.
Right.
Like with Michael Malone a couple years ago, 1 or 2 seed, you probably shouldn't care that much.
No,
to push your team. So I wouldn't blame San Antonio or Oklahoma City for not playing some of their guys.
No, I don't blame them
But
either.
I also don't think that the Nuggets necessarily will. Because I think David Adelman was sitting the next chair over from Michael Malone. He's like, I'm not going to do this.
No, it's smart to keep with the history the Nuggets have had this year.
Uh-huh.
You rest as many people you can before we get to the playoffs.
Again, load management. We hate it unless it's our
your
team,
team.
and then we're like, no, we understand this. Nuggets and Blazers, as Ray mentioned, coming up at 7:00. Aaron Gordon, do we have an update with Aaron Gordon? Is he not on the injury report?
He was not on the injury report.
See, this is what I don't.
He's on my injury report.
I trust David Adelman to sit guys when they're not healthy, but I don't trust David Adelman to restrain himself if the Nuggets are in this fight for the 3 seed and Aaron Gordon's available to him. He played 41 minutes against San Antonio.
Remember that we went the OKC game where Shea didn't play because he was on a minutes restriction in overtime.
Right.
Technically, I think they came out and said Aaron Gordon is going to be on a minutes restriction before the Spurs game. And then he went 41 minutes.
That's what I worry about with David Adelman.
Pull him back.
I trust him to be in consult with his training staff and to make a decision that is the right one in terms of the health of his players. Aaron Gordon might be healthy enough to play.
Yeah.
I don't want him playing 40 minutes tonight against the Portland Trailblazers, and I don't know if David Adelman is going to restrain himself on that. So there's that. There's also the national championship game, which is coming up on Extra Sports 1300. Michigan and UConn. UConn close or Michigan in a rout? That's kind of what I'm of 2 minds. I think, and it's totally being a prisoner of the moment. Michigan blows out Arizona, and UConn has that phenomenal finish to go to the Final Four. Like, I'm totally being a prisoner of the moment. But my feeling is Michigan is going to win this game going away, or we're going to get a classic, and the UConn Huskies are going to be crowned college basketball dynasty. So we'll see that tonight. Also, for if it fits your taste, the Colorado Rockies are in action tonight against the Houston Astros. So we'll be back. We'll talk about it all tomorrow. So the national championship coming up next on Extra Sports 1300. My thoughts on the Nuggets win over the Spurs on KVOR.